I think we are now going ahead with one of our core products from this project, which means we are speaking about the so-called nomenclature. I just told Jann Wannemacher then that, for example, in our German community, we would never use the word nomenclature for these things. That's why it took some time to understand. But in the end, it's about talking about areas of expertise and in the end, find them. Yeah, find the people who are qualified for this kind of area expertise, for those who do not know what is nomenclature at this moment. Yeah, and I'm happy to present you two presenters today. They are both the leaders of the working package 3, which deals with nomenclature convergence. And it's first of all Jann Wannemacher from Wien and Bertrand Ludes from Paris. Yeah. And I forgot, well, I do not want to leave or to forget to say Bertrand was elected president of the CNCNJ some weeks ago, so congratulations again and good luck for this work, but please stay in our project. I know that you have other... Okay, great. Thank you very much. And I heard that Jann will make the presentation and you will be able to answer questions if this from the... Please go ahead, it's your floor.
Good afternoon, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the world of nomenclature. Jury members, project managers, project participants, colleagues. Please do not mix us up with working package 2, working group 3. I think there's a differentiation in the task and in the presentation of what we did. As Bernard said, we took care or dedicated ourselves and engaged ourselves in a nomenclature and to find a way for finding maybe common ground on and with a view to the later on searching engine and the IT tool we want to have, where users should have the possibility to narrow down their requests according to fields of expertise and then be presented a specific or more specific list of experts in the IT tool. The group, as you can see, contained and consisted of representatives of many member states and befriended states, and a lot of institutions and organizations were represented, and that might be added. We have not been containing of each and every member state, which is nomenclature-wise maybe something that will make a difference in the end or not. But we had a lively discussion and a very constructive approach in the working package. And let me express my gratitude to all the colleagues who have been involved, apart from Aurélie and Nathalie, who did a great job in supporting us so far. On the outset of working package 3, the nomenclature draft, as will be presented later, was the core issue of what we should put forward and what we should come up with. But on the way to that, there was a first milestone that was called inventory report, where we were expected to collect existing nomenclature that is out there with a focus on pilot member states who will be especially addressed with the IT tool at the beginning. Of course, the inventory was not only a measure of itself, but also helping in understanding what is out there, where do we find common ground, and of course it led to first conclusions also from gathering and collecting the nomenclature that is out there. After the conference of consensus today, and maybe in some kind of execution phase, we will also take care of an outlook on the nomenclature and further developments that might be necessary in updating it. We have been hearing a lot today about the dynamics of expertise, and there are fields opening up in future with future developments in science and techniques, for example, and we will come up with a proposal how to address that, and also how we will and which steps we will take from the nomenclature draft to the IT search tool. But step by step, the first phase for us was the inventory, and after we had settled and found ourselves after the kickoff meeting in last April, participants were invited to present and to provide the nomenclature that in their member state is present and in place. We did collect this, we put that together in an inventory report, and of course we could monitor and find similarities, of course. I think the world of expertise might not be too different when it comes to real estate valuation. That might be an issue in every member state. There are, of course, differences too, and regionally varying broader or not so broad varieties of nomenclature. And also there is a variety in the approach where there are member states like my own, where is one list and one set of nomenclature, and there are other member states who have regions in charge of registering lists and corresponding nomenclature. Correct me, Angela, if I'm wrong. I think in Italy it's 165 courts who are providing each and every court their own list, more or less. But there are different approaches, so we took a look at it and drew first conclusions, which led to a first draft of groups, let's say, of fields of expertise, which we came up with from the inventory report, and which was the starting point for discussions in our working package when it came to refining and splitting up this a little more. And to give you an idea, that came from that inventory, that we had groups of fields of expertise that we could group by nature. I want to say, when you think of human health at the very beginning, that might be obvious to you and very clear that this is something that we need to tackle and that is in place. Same with natural science. Vehicles, transport, traffic is also of high importance because the cases of car accidents or whatever are manifold. We think of finance, taxes, the economy world and the business world, as well as machinery, techniques, and the construction part of expertise, of course. And this is what the first conclusion was. This is pretty common to most of the nomenclature and different systems, as different as they are, that we could identify and that we could find. And from there on, we tried to work our ways through the groups and tried to split them up a little more to be more specific and to give way for, let's say, the user in the end, sitting in front of his search tool to be more precise in searching. Coming from that group, it might be also obvious and pretty clear that the approach that we took is top to bottom. So we try to work our ways through and into the details, though we had, of course, discussions and negotiations, I want to say, on the scope of each group and let's say, fields of expertise. It's not particularly clear that every member state or every language understands under the same term, the same scope, which might not be a surprise throughout Europe and what we have heard today on differences in different systems. We crossed the cross-section area problem, or maybe not problem, but there are, of course, issues like valuation, maintenance, or forensic, and there are others that could be singled out as categories on their own, or let's say fields of expertise on their own. And the question was if you want to single them out or if we want to keep it with the field of expertise it belongs to. I will come back to that later. It's just, let's say, an overview of what we did. We tried to dedicate ourselves to future developments and how to take them into the nomenclature so that we are fit for the future and that we can allow for the flexibility we need in changing and adopting and adapting the nomenclature in the future. There is, of course, a language item going on too, and I will dwell on that later. And we have a specific question or an item that was raised considering judicial and court translators, if they are to be considered judicial experts or not, and in this respect to be taken on and included in the nomenclature or not. to go through that one by one. As I had shown you, that the groups of expertise was the first step, and this has been our conclusion from the inventory. In the end, we ended at a 3-level, let's say, matrix, where the groups are at level 1, and they are split up in categories, as we called them, on level 2. And in the end, there were categories even split up, or at least one, into subcategories, which were the level 3. And just to give an idea on the structure, of course, we crossed situations where one or the other term didn't work out for, let's say, a common understanding on the scope of the term or not. So we had to manage and had to, let's say, not be too specific so that a couple of member states would fall out because they wouldn't consider themselves to be covered maybe by that specific term or not. But we wanted to keep the structure rather simple and use general terms so that everybody can find a way to fit in. But we still think it's solid because that's the main approach that we tried to do. We tried to converge. We tried to let any member state and every member state's nomenclature fit in at the end. But just to give an example, it might be the biggest step to fully harmonize what is out there nomenclature-wise, but that might take a little more input and a little more, I want to say, political power or will. The third level, as I have been talking about, we have started the discussions on that and trying to be even more specific than on the first 2 levels there were. And it turned out that the troubles that we had with the terminology and the language maybe, and also the scope of each and every field of expertise would require a lot more of in-depth discussion and looking at what we need. So in let's say the middle of the process, we reduced the opening up of a 3rd level only in the first group of human health. Oops. Where you can see the first group has been split up into categories, and these categories have been further split up into subcategories. Because the medical field, to our understanding, was, let's say, easier to tackle in more detail because we had the feeling that on an academic level there might be similar ideas of disciplines of medicine throughout the member states, and this could be the test area, as we call it, the test run. And we want to see in the converging phase where member states' nomenclature shall be fit into the FindexII nomenclature that we came up, if that works out at all, if we need a 3rd level at all, and if we encounter, let's say, more problems if we do it, or if we avoid more problems if we leave it out. So the 3-level approach is fully set in place only for one group still. What also came to mind coming up with a structure and level of detail is that we are in contact with Working Package 4, who is in charge of the IT for the search engine, and thinking of a particular setting and design, and this will also reflect on our work, because depending on what possibilities you have in the search tool and how far and how deepened you can search, that will help us designing the nomenclature. There will be a reflection phase also after the conference of consensus when the IT search tool will become more and more specific. And of course, we expect practical experiences from the work with the search engine to be also something that we need to reflect on in further developing the nomenclature. But for the moment, I think we have had the pleasure to put forward a set of fields of expertise that could work for the moment, and it is solid enough. The question of the cross-section areas, as I introduced before, where the question arises if we want to isolate them as a specific category or a specific field of expertise, or if we, let's say, want to have a category of vehicles and would consider the evaluation of a specific car, for example, or the maintenance of a car falling under that category, which is the basic approach that in the end we chose. That we said that anything that comes with, let's say, the category that is at stake also contains question of valuation and maintenance and let's say artificial intelligence that will be coming up maybe in more and more fields of expertise. Of course, we will need to reflect on that also, and let's say for real estate evaluation, there is a specific interest maybe of the public to have that singled out, because I think the main, or could be that the main thing, or the main expert you need to search for concerning real estate, it might be somebody who can evaluate the real estate at stake. And in this respect, could be that we come forward with the proposal on singling that out and having a real estate valuation as a category of its own. Still up for discussion. Where we have singled out already is forensics, and that might be another very prominent example of where it makes sense maybe to single it out. Maybe not for all the expertise and areas of expertise there are, but at least for medicine and science. So we have forensic medicine as a separate category and forensic science as a separate category, but there might be others that can be added there later on. As I had been dwelling already on language and terminology and the different understanding maybe of terms and or the scope of a term, we were speaking in English, and I do not think that we had too many native speakers in our group, if at all. I'm not particularly sure. But of course there are translations issues at hand, and we need to tackle them. And we haven't had a professional translation of the nomenclature or specific terminology yet. Also because we know there is a translation budget and we didn't want to, let's say, reach out for it from the very beginning. But at a certain point in time, especially when we are aware of a specific language regime that the IT tool will provide for, we might take a closer look at that and then go for a professional translation. But in the phase after the conference, where we will try to match national nomenclature specifically with the fields of expertise that we have come up with, and to, let's say, have the matrix fulfilled with everything that's out there, where also the IT tool in the end needs the corresponding fields of expertise to mirror them and technically mirror them. There will be further discussions envisaged on the scope of each and every category. We will identify maybe further difficulties and specialities, and then we might do that before we go in for the professional translation. And also, we might add definitions and explanations to the scope to make clear what is meant by each field of expertise. And I'm not speaking of real estate valuation, because that might be pretty clear from the outset. Maybe not, I don't know. But there are there are areas that might not be so common in our understanding that we need further explanations, subtitles, and we will try to figure that out. Also in the let's say, speaking of upcoming years where the nomenclature might need updates already, refinements are never out of the business, and we will see what the practice shows, what we additionally need. We have had in the discussions on the fields of expertise the issue that certain member states consider translators, interpreters also as judicial experts, which is not common. It's not a common concept around the member states involved. And we haven't particularly found the answer to that. Shall we add them to the nomenclature? Shall we include them or not? We are in pending consultation with the institutions. We have been contacting European Commission, and we will make our ways into a meeting of e-justice and the member states represented there, and I ask them on their opinion and expertise. We have been on the way to consulting EULITA, which is, let's say, the European organization on translators. It might not be 100%. The term and the name of the organization might be differently, but still. And of course, we're asking the jury on their opinion and estimation. Is that something that we need to add? And is it something that doesn't belong in this project because it's judicial experts is narrower than including the translators also? It's to be decided. But for the moment, we have added in the nomenclature a group of translators with a question mark still, but we can easily add them in the nomenclature if the decision has been made. The thing is, I had difficulties to add to the slide of the presentation a nomenclature that on an A3 paper, well, in the end looks like this. I cannot display this on the screen, but I'm pretty sure that you will be provided with the matrix that we have come up with. But this is in the end, to give you an idea on the first level, the groups that we have identified, which are further split up into categories and concerning human health also in subcategories. This is what we came up with, and especially the jury members should find the whole list and the whole nomenclature set in their documentation for today's conference and today's meeting, because of course we are asking jury members on their opinion, estimation, and in the end on their approval of what we did, and if that's the set that we shall go on with. Speaking of going on, and to let's say come back to what we will do with it, we will be in steady coordination with Working Package 4, and then already building the bridge to the next speaker. Because of course the search engine structure will have to more or less correspond to the nomenclature we have come up with. And we will be very much interested which filters, which search parameters can be used there to maybe readapt and refine on the nomenclature itself. We will be matching the national nomenclature as far as we are able to do and as far as we get to see if it's working out, and at least I have asked the members of Working Package 3 already if they do see any colliding difficulties, or if they cannot fit any of their nomenclature into the Findex nomenclature, or I think we haven't discovered any major problems yet, but there might be, and we will look out for further refinements in the nomenclature still after this mapping process, and we will put forward ideas on the roadmap for further updates, let's say, who is in charge of monitoring nomenclature, possible and necessary adjustments, and who will in the end decide on how to do that. The basic approach is that we tried at some point to keep it a little more simple and a little more general than we could have had, but we consider, and this is also my personal opinion, that it's easier to develop it further after having collected experience with the nomenclature than to take something back that doesn't work. And I want to see what the mapping process and the, let's say, mirroring or fitting in national nomenclature into that Findex nomenclature will bring up. So far for the works of Working Package 3. Thanks also, Bertrand, for your steady support in this. As I said, I would have loved to display the bigger picture, but maybe I'm not IT expert enough, but still.
Thank you, Jann. But the important thing to know is that the group wants to make... I have the microphone. One?
No, it should be.
1, 2. Do you hear me? No. It's important. It's Jann's the boss. Yes, it's just important to say that the group wants to set up a common denominator of all the fields in the country which were tested, because afterwards we can work to expand the groups or the subgroups. But originally, we must have just minimum fields where we can have an agreement between all the countries. And sometimes, in some fields, there are some difference in the subgroups about the architects, engineering, and so on, and sometimes also with some medical fields. So it depends. So afterwards, we will have to go to the definition, to the prices definition, just so that we can build it up. Well, it's the first step, and we present the first step just as the jury said, okay, we are in the good way to work, or if we must have some different approach about our working track. It's okay for my craft? Okay, I can give you your microphone.
Yeah, thank you very much. No, it's not working, this one, right? Yeah.